Saddam, hello everyone. Today we have an interesting topic regarding sexuality and spirituality. I thought that it was a very important topic to talk about, and we haven't talked about this before in this channel, so it would be good to explore it. Now, sexuality is considered one of the three great traps in general, but specifically for teachers. Sex, power, money is the triad that can catch you, and in your behavior towards the outside, in your behavior towards the inside, we would add diet as well, like one of the traps that it's very easy to be unbalanced about one of these topics. But particularly sexuality is important. We see a lot of abuse of power and abuse of a position of power to gain sexual favor in some ways. And this is repeatedly present throughout spiritual communities. You can see that very often. I mean, you can see it everywhere. You can see it in any position where there is an imbalance in power, that the one above is gonna, you're gonna see examples of people taking advantage of that power and to gain money or to gain even more power or as I mentioned, sex. So that happens everywhere, but it also happens within the spiritual community. And some people get very surprised that this would happen in a circle like in yoga. But, there is ego everywhere, and there is the traps that catch an ego is going to happen whether you are a politician, which is the collective that is most often blamed when we think about the problems in the world, which I don't necessarily agree that the problem is about politicians. But politicians is one collective that are often blamed. And we have a tendency to think that those who dedicate their lives to communicate or transmit some sort of visual, spiritual teachings, they are pure, and it's not the case. As in the spiritual community, we also suffer from ego, and we also have our own issues to deal with, and therefore these kind of situations where there's an abuse of sex, power, or money happen as well within these communities. And so it's important to reflect upon this. What is the relationship between our sexuality and our spirituality? Because we want to lead a spiritual life. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, after all. But then what do we do with that? What do we do with the sexuality? And there is a lot of thoughts around the idea of sexuality that it's kind of like the power corrupts. Sexuality, you can also see how often we attach it to some ideas of something that is dirty. Yeah, there is a lot of ideas coming. I'm talking now coming from a Catholic background, from the church. Just because you are born in the Catholic Church, you would be born out of sin. Your parents sinned, and you are already a sinner, and you associate sexuality with that sin. And there is a lot of guilt linked to the concept of sexuality. Now, we have been exploring in this channel in depth how guilt is a game, is a mind game that traps us, and then we operate from our ego, whether we think that we are above others because we don't fall into that game, or we feel below others because we are committing the sin. And then that can be often utilized by somebody else to take advantage of you in some way, like, for example, to control you. This would be a very common way of controlling the population through guilt and shame. So we have explored how, if this is a mind game and this is something that is the ego playing, then it's something that we want to avoid. If we want to avoid that, that means we should not feel guilty about sexuality. But then what is the right relationship to it? And if it can even be part of a harmonious spiritual life. So this is, I think, an interesting question to ask ourselves, and something that we can reflect upon today. Now, it is good that in the code of conduct of many professions, there is a separation between the let's say the client and the one who is offering some sort of service, whether you are a doctor or you are a consultant or you are some sort of teacher, there is a difference, there is a separation, there is a boundary that is not crossed. So there is a number of ethical codes and laws even that prevent somebody from crossing that line. And so knowing that code is going to help you to just stay and don't mess up. And why is this even necessary? Well, let's explore it for a moment. And I'm going to explore it in a very personal way, the way I experience it as a teacher. But maybe you will experience it as well in a different way. If you are the boss of a company, you have some people underneath you, there is an imbalance of power. If you're a doctor and you wear your own uniform, this is kind of my yogi uniform, right? The moment you put the white coat on top, and the patient comes into your office, there is an imbalance of power. So it's the same kind of imbalance as what I experience when I sit in the place of a teacher. Like right now I'm kind of teaching, and somebody is watching me and then they want to connect with me. And I will say, so how is my experience with this? So let's say I'm teaching yoga classes, and I'm teaching weekly classes for years. And then there is something very, very beautiful about it, because you see people coming into the class with all sorts of problems. Not everybody who comes to yoga comes with problems, but many people come with some physical problems or psychological or emotional, and they want to get better. And you are there with them week after week, sometimes twice a week, 3 times a week, and hopefully, and generally, it's nice that it happens most of the times, the person improves. So you are in a very beautiful position in which you can see the beautiful process of the person as they are improving. And also, because we are doing a spiritual practice, I get to see people in their highest state, in the highest of the highest sometimes. Sometimes you see somebody, and I am with my eyes open generally when I'm teaching and they are meditating, and then I can see some incredibly beautiful faces and radiance and light, and nothing to do with regular beauty as we consider it beautiful according to some canon or some fashion or some TikTok viral video that you may think. It's nothing about that. It's about the beauty of the soul shining out. And I get to see that very, very often. So that's a beautiful thing on my position of a teacher. But it can be challenging and difficult, because it's easy to confuse. It's easy to get confused. When you are seeing that person and he's all shining and beautiful, you feel love. And you love the person, and you love the students, you love everybody who is going through this. You should love anyone anyway, but the moment that you see them shining in that way, it's easier to feel love towards them. So that's already something that can trick your mind. And if you are not very, very neutral, and that's why we chant some mantras at the beginning of a class, and we protect ourselves and we protect the space, but we also protect ourselves from our own shortcomings and our own challenges. So part of it is to neutralize what is happening and be able to feel, and you can even express that love, but in a neutral way, not in a biased way, not in a human personal way, but it's more like a universal, abstract, neutral way. And again, that can be very easily confused on the part of the teacher and on the part of the student, on both sides. From the part of the teacher, let's say you are having a tough time with your wife, and you are you haven't had sex for months, and then you go into yoga class and you have this beautiful girl in front of you. When I say girl, I mean a woman, but a woman in front of you, and she's shining and radiating, and then you feel love towards her. Well, you can see how easily, if your personal life is not quite balanced, how easy can this be misinterpreted, and why so many teachers actually end up breaking their own code of ethics and engaging into a sexual relationship with the students. Now, even Even if the student was willing to do that, to go into a relationship with the teacher, that is a breach of contact. That's a breach of the code of ethics that we have, because the student does not, the teacher should know better. The student doesn't, because there is this imbalance of power. So the responsibility is mostly on the teacher in this case. Just like if we have a doctor and the patient goes to the doctor, it can be a medical doctor, it can be a psychologist. You go to your psychologist, you are powering the deepest parts of your soul, all your pains, all your suffering, and this doctor is helping you and you are feeling better, you're recovering, and then this doctor crosses the boundary and wants to engage into a more personal relationship. The patient may feel obliged, may feel that the doctor knows better, so if the doctor is asking me to have a relationship, it's probably good for me or for my healing or whatever. There's plenty of rationalizations that the mind can produce in the mind of the student, client, or consultant, the person who consults, and they can rationalize why is this happening, and they can go ahead with it. And so it's a responsibility on the teacher. Now, so the challenge is not just to remain neutral, but it's also you don't want to cut that love. Because if you are feeling love towards the students, and that's the most beautiful thing, it's love. Why should we want to cut it? We don't want to cut it. But then is it personal? Is it personal to that student? Do I love that student? And the other one, when they enter into class, is like, oh no, not this one again. Is it that? Because if that is what you are experiencing, then that's not true love. True love is selfless and unconditional. So it also knows no separation. So if you are feeling yourself that you are loving more one student than another, then you are not purely in the heart, and you're not totally neutral. You are farther down. And that's not the same kind of love. And I think we can all understand that, and we can all agree to that. So we have to check, what kind of love am I experiencing? I mean, it could be that you feel more love towards one than towards another because you are expanding your love, and maybe the other one is more ready to receive the love than the other. And this is, I think there is some passage, I don't know if it was in the autobiography of a yogi from Yogananda, talking about how somebody may go to the river with a little cup, somebody will go with a glass, somebody will go with a bucket. And the one with the little cup will complain that they get only this little bit. And look at the other one, look how much he got, right? So sometimes we complain, why do we have so little love? But then how open are we to receive love? Maybe we are just this little open. And the other one is more open. So sometimes we may experience that somebody is opening up, and you feel this strong connection, and there's a strong flow of love. And you don't want to cut that. But you don't want to get confused. And you don't want to go into a place where you think that that's a special person for you. It's not. It's just that you are experiencing this special love, a special kind of unconditional love, and maybe you're experiencing it more with these students, right? So it can happen in that way, but then again, you have to be super, super critical of yourself, self-aware, balanced, neutral, and checking every now and then. Now, that's regarding love. There could be also sexual attraction. You can be there, you are a man, I'm just putting myself physically on the spot, so I am a man, and then some girls dress up very provocative, and sometimes maybe they wear a low neck with a dress, and then they're doing some yoga postures, and then you're seeing them, and you're seeing them kind of naked. And it's like, when that happens, and I am guiding the class, and then I see the student, and the student is exposing herself in some way, I have to remind myself, and I have to go back to the mantra. And generally what I do is I chant that Guru Name, Jugat Guru Name within my mind to remind myself this is a spiritual being having a human experience. It very often is just the student doesn't even know that this is happening. Most of the time it's just unconscious. They are not trying to provoke you. They are not trying to seduce you in any way. I'm saying most of the times because it can happen as well. Maybe we will talk about that in a moment. But it can happen that it's just unconscious. Shiv Charan was telling me how when he was teaching regular classes many years ago in London, he had a student who was coming to class in a skirt every day and was sitting in the first row. So can you imagine how many postures you have to do in which you open the legs or you do some sort of asana? And how would you do it with a skirt? And she was in the front row. So it's such a test that you have to be neutral all the time and remind yourself, don't go there, right? Don't lower your consciousness to the second chakra. Stay in the heart and stay in your very, very conscious, right? So the position of a teacher is not easy at all. Now let's talk about the other side, the position of the student. And let's remind ourselves, all of us are students all life, even teachers, we are also students. So that can happen on the other direction as well. Now let me I was expressing I am here, and then there's this student who's coming. This woman has been coming for months, week after week, and today she's really shining, right? So imagine that this girl has been, I say girl, but again, it's a woman, right? Has been wounded for many years. Her heart is in pain, and she has been closed to love totally. She has felt betrayed or abused or something similar, and there's plenty of trauma to go around, so you can imagine anything you want. And let's say that this woman is there and she has been for months battling this issue, this inner trauma. And through the yoga, through the chanting, through the Guru's grace, she's healing herself. And at some point one day, she's doing this mantra, Sat Kartar, or she's doing some meditation, and suddenly she feels fully opening the heart again, like she hasn't done it for years maybe. And she feels again her own heart, her own love that is flowing through her. And she has been close to it for a long time. Now imagine, she's right there, she's feeling this, that's a wonderful thing. And then she opens her eyes. Maybe the exercise finishes or it doesn't. And she opens her eyes, and who does she see? She sees you in front as a teacher. And we humans are so quick to project and feel, wow, this love. And then they see you and they love you. And they go into this projecting of the love towards the person, not towards what you are bringing. And it's very easy because we are bringing something to the planet that is incredible. These teachings are invaluable. It's impossible to put a value to them. So there's something really incredible happening in the class. And it's happening through you as a teacher. That's such a blessing. But then it can be, look, I love this teacher. I love the teacher, rather than the teachings that are coming. And it's okay. They can love you. It's fine. Just like I was saying, the teacher can love the students. It's okay. But how easy can we cross that boundary? And how easy can we misunderstand? You are doing that meditation and you misunderstand, and then you think you are falling in love with the teacher. And then there is seduction sometimes. The student will come and they will try to seduce the teacher. And again, this is very challenging for the teacher, because not only you don't want to break the code of ethics, as I mentioned, but there is something else as well. If a student is trying to seduce you, and you can feel maybe this happened, maybe the student was feeling some sort of trauma and they are feeling better now, they are opening, their heart is opening, they are feeling so much better. And now they are experiencing love again after many years of trauma. Now, do you want to just cut it and, oh, no, I cannot do anything with you, I am a teacher, you're a student, I cannot... You have to be very careful how you express the special relationship that you have that would never become a sexual relationship. It's very difficult, because if let's say this woman has been closed for years, and now she's opening herself, and her heart is open, and the moment that you open the heart like this, after years of trauma, it's extremely sensitive. So now she's confusing and she thinks it's about you, not the teachings or herself. It's her own love. In a way, is the duty of a teacher now not to close it down, to say, no, what you are feeling is not love, this is lust or something else, you are confused. It's not about closing it down, it's about saying, well, you are just in love with this experience you are having and this love, and how to communicate to this woman or man, because this happens the other way around as well. Okay, I'm just giving my personal example as a man with a female student, but you can translate this to your own experience. So how can I communicate in some graceful way to the other one that this is a special relationship. It will never become a sexual relationship, but I honor that she's experiencing her love, and I am glad that she's finding that love. It's just not about me, and it's not about me as a person. One of the things we do as teachers before we teach, particularly in Kundalini Yoga, before I start any class, I do a little oath. And it's, I'm not a woman, I'm not a man, I'm not a person, I'm not myself, I am a teacher. So when we are starting the oath, I remind myself, I'm not a woman, I'm not a man, because the teacher is neutral, not one nor the other. So no polarity, I'm not a person, I'm not myself. So I don't go into the personality, and I don't go into my own problems. I take all this away, just like when I remove my shoes at the entrance of the yoga studio or your house or your class, you take, with the shoes, you leave all your problems behind. And when you are teaching, you are neutral. And that should be your position, neutrality. And so, again, that's why, if I see something revealing, or I notice a beautiful girl and it's like coming into class and it's like, oh, wow. And then for a moment, I may lose my center. I will go back to Adgriname, the protection mantra, and I will go back to, I'm not a woman, not a man, I'm not a person, I'm myself, I am a teacher. Sometimes I may need to close my eyes and go into it to neutralize again. But because I can recognize how easy it is to confuse. So, having said all that, when there is this imbalance of power, it's very easy to get confused. But we are humans. And out of the context of the class, we also have sexuality. And so how can I relate to that aspect of myself in a way that it is healthy? So here is where there is a beautiful sequence of qualities that bring us from sexuality to spirituality that we develop within us. And I would love to share with this. This is something that I learned from Shiv Charan, like most of the things that I teach on this channel. Sometimes, when I started as a translator. Most of the time I was just translating Shiv to Spanish. And I'm still feeling like a translator. Shiv is teaching, and then I take his teachings and then I translate them. I rewrite them, re-speak them again in different words, but I keep recycling his material again and again because I find it so valuable. Now I'm going to write numbers because now we are more comfortable with the numbers since we are starting to do the Karankriya course. And one of the way we write the numbers are like the grid of 9. Which, if you carried on, it would go 10, 11. So this would go up to 11. I'm going to draw the 11 today because it's a special. This is kind of inspired a little bit from Tuesday. Tuesday, we had a little bit of fun with dates of birth. And we had somebody with an 11. And so I said, well, I haven't talked too much about the 11. So maybe it's interesting that we reflect upon the 11 in this way as well. And today is day 11. So if we look at the date of today, that's 11. And that's this 11, yeah? But 1 plus 1 is 2, so that's this 2. 2024, that's also a lot of 2s, but also 2024 is 8, if you add all of it. So we have the 2, the 8, and the 11 in the date of today. And I was thinking, how interesting would it be to explore this? Now, I'm going to draw a little, very, very soft yogi here. Yeah. Hopefully you can see it very, very softly in yellow. Because the idea is that 5 is the number of the middle and 5 is the center. So this is like the central channel. And look at where the 2 is. The 2 would be linked to the second chakra. Now the second chakra, we commonly connect it with sexuality. And that's the topic of today. So what happens with sexuality? How do I deal with that? Now, we have to talk about a few things. One is sexuality, by being below the diaphragm, everything that is below the diaphragm, it's kind of linked to the shadow in us. Now, the shadow is very interesting psychological concept. I believe I talked about this a little bit already in a couple of videos in the channel, like the video about the self and some parts of the video, the course on the mind, when we talked about the subconscious, because the shadow is linked to the subconscious. The shadow is nothing wrong about it. There's a lot of power in the shadow, but there's work we have to do with it, because the shadow, by definition, is what we hide in the darkness. Now, everything that is below the fourth chakra, the 1, 2, 3, the first 3 chakras, these are animal instincts and animal impulses, and we hide it and we pretend that they don't exist. Just this very frame that we have right now, this YouTube frame, this little square, means that, look at me, this is me. Don't look what is below. And I'm going to pretend I have nothing there. You know, I am a teacher, I'm very pure, right? I don't have anything below. Well, you know what? I have chakras. I have the 1, 2, 3 chakras as well. But we sit on tables and we have this frame, these Zoom calls that we do sometimes, where we pretend that this is just us, from the fourth chakra upwards. And why do we not show the others? Well, we keep it hidden. And what is hidden, what is in the darkness, there can be a lot of power in there, but it can also be, let's say, it's like when you close a basement and you don't go in for a long time, and then you try to visit it and there's all sorts of insects and stuff, vermin, yeah? So if you pretend that you don't have that and you repress or suppress what is happening there, and that's very much linked to our basic instincts and our emotions, if we pretend that we don't have those instincts, it can become like vermin. So it's important that all of us, and especially yogis, that we relate to those chakras and those instincts, and we connect to that energy and we refine it. So the path that we are going to talk right now is the path of refinement of the sexual energy. Because the sexual energy, yes, in principle, biologically is designed to produce a baby. It creates life. That's the basic of it. But creating life, that's also, you can take it like it can be creativity within your own life. It can bring creativity towards yourself in your own life. So the same energy, and we say in Sanskrit it is utilized this word ojas to talk about the semen, for example. And if you take this energy and you transmute it and you elevate it, you can bring it to the head. In Sanskrit, you will call the liquid in the brain, surrounding the brain and holding the brain. That's also called ojas. So it's interesting that it utilizes the same word. And I think what it's trying to say with that is that there is a sexual energy. And look, Kundalini, the Kundalini energy is a sexual energy. And that energy down there wants to rise. So what we are seeing here is no more than the rising of the Kundalini. And as you do Kundalini yoga, or actually as you do any yoga, and you start moving even areas of the body you are not used to moving, that repressed, suppressed, possibly shadow of yourself, dark areas of yourself start to wake up, and that can awaken also your sexuality, and you may feel more sexual person when you are practicing yoga. Again, that can bring confusion. So we have to know what we are doing with that sexuality. So we have a number of meditations and practices and kriyas like Sat Kriya. We have other tools like be creative. If it's a creative energy, why not be creative, be artistic, and utilize art to move the energy, to raise it? Because art is something from the fourth chakra, so you're raising it to the fourth chakra and higher. So art, also being in nature, all those things can help to raise that energy. And so there's nothing wrong with relating to your sexuality. Actually, there is something wrong with not relating to the sexuality, trying to pretend it doesn't exist and repressing it or suppressing it. And also, that's why if you are a monk, if you are have chosen a monastic life, you have to be so clear on how you utilize that energy, because otherwise it can produce vermin, right? There is a lot of sexual, let's say, deviant behavior within monastic orders and monastic places, like people who are in convents and monasteries and things like that. A lot of abuse within the church, also with children and all those things. All those things happen. Why do they happen? Because there's been a repression of that energy and they haven't done anything with it. Now we say from emotion to devotion, that means whatever sexual energy, and sexual energy is linked to emotion because it's energy in motion. If it's in motion, right, what you don't want is to stagnant. Then when it's stagnant, like the water, it produces vermin. When it's in motion, that sexual energy, that emotion, you can utilize it to fuel your devotion, which is why we bring it to the heart. That's why art also helps. Meditation helps because it's raising the energy up. Now, what is happening when you raise the energy up? Well, there's 4 levels. And this is what could be most revealing about this. From this, and they were like this. Look, this is like our most basic impulses and instincts, animal instincts. They are guiding our sexuality. So on this level, we have sexuality. And as we rise it, and we rise it to the heart, I was talking about emotion to devotion, that is this raising of the energy. It could be physically, you can do it through the pumping of the navel, lifting the arms overhead, chanting Satnam, like in the practice of Satkriya. It can be through some other practices, even some asanas, just like the asana of Bhujangasana, the cobra. That asana by itself is already raising the sexual energy. And when it rises to the next level, and how we have 4 is the heart, 6 is the third eye. This is our inspiration and our intuition in life linked to the heart and the Sangat, Dharma, Sangat, Guru, yeah? So the Sangat level, that sexuality is transformed into sensuality. So we don't want to repress it. We want to express it. But how? How? And through this transmutation or this elevation of the energy, it becomes sensuality. Now, you can recognize the root of the word sensuality as the senses. We have 5 senses. So this sexual energy, creative energy, it's being refined. And what is it doing is your senses become more acute, more sensitive. And the relationship to senses is something that is very relevant in our process to meditation, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, because we want to see what you are doing with the senses. If we go with the senses out, we distracted, we get dispersed into the world. But if we refine them and bring them inwards, they can subtly help us in this transmutation, in this movement inside. I don't want to go too much into transmutation because the objective is not just transmutation. It's about crystallization of the soul, but it's a bit complicated. So let me not confuse. Let me not add too many terms. Let me go slowly. So from emotion to devotion, you utilize the creative energy to express your art and your creativity. You are bringing this energy up, and from sexuality, you are rising to sensuality. So you are connecting with that sexual aspect within you and then becoming sensual. So being sexual and being sensual is not the same. I think everybody can intuitively know something about that. If I just say, what's the difference between sexuality and sensuality? And you can connect, okay? So something is more lower impulse, the sexuality. In the male would be the penetrative impulse, yeah? In the woman would be being filled. But that sexuality is different from the sensuality. And sensuality is more about the senses. It happens in the couple, is the touch, is the one whisper of a word in the ear, is a kiss, yeah, a taste, a smell. It's these senses become more acute, and you are connecting on that strong level. Connecting, look at that word, connection. Connection is something that we connect to number 5, yeah? So number 5 connects the 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, and this is the level where we are talking about. 5, like the 5th chakra, is communication. We communicate to connect. So we are having all these sexual impulses and instinctive behavior, and we are refining it, and it's becoming more sensual. All right, so good, so far so good. You will let me know, or you will write in the comments or in the chat if you have any doubt regarding this transition that I'm doing slowly. Now we come into the higher centers. And that's also engaging the mind and the spirit, the 7 and the 9. And as we come into the 8, that sensuality, as we keep rising it, because this is what is happening within us, we are lifting it. The Kundalini wants to rise, wants to go to the top of the head. So as it is rising, this sensuality becomes sensitivity. So it's still about the senses, but it's not about being sensual. It's about being sensitive, which means perception. It means like the antenna, the idea that when we go here and we are 7, 8, 9, this is the antenna, this is our turban, this is our antenna. Now, all that sensuality that we have been refining, now as we raise it to the higher centers of consciousness, above the sixth chakra and above, now it's helping us to tune in to some higher frequencies. And that is also, this is what we will connect to number 8. And 8 is the number that we connect to compassion. And it's something that look, if you have become more sensitive, with sensual is more personal. When you're having a sensual connection to another person, yeah, another human, you are into the flow of the couple, let's say. So when you are in a couple with somebody, feel free to explore that movement from sexuality to sensuality, and you're exploring it and expressing it with the other one. And you don't express that with everyone, you express that with your partner. But then when you are with everybody else, can you take that sensuality and refine it even more, and refine the senses in a way that you can feel what is happening with you in relationship to the other and what is happening in the other. And that sensitivity is the root of our empathic capacity. And that means that empathy, that means, so this is linked to empathy, not sympathy, not antipathy. If we go into sympathy and antipathy, this is like when I was giving the example that you're in class and you feel very in tune with someone, and then another one comes in and you're like, oh no, not this one again, please. So if you are antipathetic about somebody and you are sympathetic about somebody, you are not neutral. You're following these categories of friends and enemies. If you want enemies, have friends. Right? The moment that you categorize some people as friends, then the opposite becomes real. Yin and yang, you cannot have one without the other. So if you say, oh, this is my friend, that's not my friend, then the possibility for enemy energy comes in. This is not like saying anybody who is not my friend is my enemy. I'm not saying that, but the moment that you say somebody, this is my friend, this is somebody I can be sympathetic with, and I resonate with, well, then you are just deciding not to resonate with that one, and you're becoming antipathetic. Antipathetic means Pathos is suffering, so pathetic empathy means to be able to feel the suffering of somebody else, but it could be just to feel what the other one is feeling. But antipathy would be like, I'm close to that person. I don't want to feel what they are feeling. So antipathy would be like, I reject this person. That's kind of an enemy. You create an enemy, and that's going to have repercussions. That's going to have its own karma. It's going to create karma. So we want to be able to connect neutrally to anyone. So there's no friends, there's no enemies, there is Sangat. Sangat consciousness is the consciousness that we are all one, Ekonkar. We are all connected in some basic level. And if this is a very good trick, if you find yourself disagreeing with somebody and you're having an argument and you feel that there is a risk that it can get out of hand. Now, confrontation can easily turn into conflict, particularly if you are taking the stance that they are against me, or I am against them, or I have to defend myself, or I have to attack them. Now, neutrality would, something that helps to neutrality is saying, well, pathos, empathy, right? Put yourself in their shoes for the moment and just assume one thing, assume that they are right. In whichever way they understand things, from their perspective, they are right. So, and also put yourself in another position. It is very likely that we have a very strong point in common. No matter how much we are disagreeing about this, there's something that we have in common. So if you can do a little bit of work, especially if it's in a communication, to find that middle ground and to connect to the other one and understanding their position and seeing that we are from the same place. We are coming from the same place. And when the other one feels that you can be empathetic towards them and also compassionate, then there can be a genuine connection. And then we are still neutral on the level of the heart. They don't become our friends, but they also don't become our enemies. We are Sangat, we are community. Community is common unity, so it's finding what is in common in both. So when you can achieve that neutrality, that's what we call empathy. Not sympathy, not antipathy, and definitely not apathy. Apathy would be to close myself and not want to feel anything. This is, I feel towards the other one, against the other one, and apathy would be not to feel anything, while empathy would be the neutral state. And from that empathy, you can, compassion rises from this empathy. Compassion is number 8, and it's fueled by this sensitivity. In order to be empathetic and compassionate, you have to have that sensitivity that you can connect to the other. So hopefully it was clear, and it was it was quite easy to follow that we are refining that energy, sexual impulse and instincts, and refining up it to sensuality, and that sensuality of the senses, stimulation of the senses, into sensitivity in which I'm becoming more receptive to something else, and we are going even higher. Now, that is my daughters, probably they are just connecting. Hello! Are you Noah or Holly? I think my daughters are connecting from their mother's laptop or tablet. Hello there, girls. How are you doing? It's nice to have the family around. And let me know. Are you Holly? How are you doing? All right, so we have been doing this rising of the energy, and we have been refining it. Now, what is the last step? That sensitivity, as we take it even higher, as we bring the energy to the highest chakra, that refined energy, which has been sensitive, becomes spirituality. And this finishes the journey that we started here. Noah and Holly, it is both of you. Hello, girls. How are you doing? Are you having a good day? Do you miss me? All right, so we have done the whole journey: sexuality, sensuality, sensitivity, spirituality. And if you get to here, you will recognize this 11, that's 10 plus 1. 10, we know that 10 is the number that we associate to God, and 1 is us. Little 1, big 1. 10 plus 1, 11, that's a big one and a little one. Well, this is similar to when you rise in consciousness with the Kundalini to the crown chakra. And this is the Shakti, Kundalini Shakti, which again, I remind, the translation of Shakti is power. We were talking about sex, power, money. So having this power and sexuality rising to meet Shakti, meeting Shiva. And that is one and one, both together. So that's your spirituality. When you can rise the consciousness, it's like you are raising something and something is coming down. There's always these two directions of the energy. So as you are raising the Kundalini, you feel the spirit also coming down. And that's why we say spirituality. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And the human experience of sexuality is rising and meeting, merging with this spiritual feeling that is coming down and is descending upon me. So this one and this one would be the Shiva and the Shakti principles. Merging, connecting, and it's also in India you will find many statues of Shiva and Shakti having intercourse together, and that is the link of Shiva and Shakti. That is the representation of what we have to do, this rising. Now, sometimes it's Shakti sitting on top of Shiva. This is the idea that you are rising in consciousness and then you are doing this journey. Sexuality, sensuality, sensitivity, spirituality. This is the full journey upwards. All right. Well, I hope it was interesting and curious. I'm happy to see my daughters around. I don't know if they're still here, but I'm happy to see them visiting. We talk about sexuality and my daughters come into the chat. I think it's the first time they do it, so that's quite cool. But so that's the topic. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to drop a like and you can subscribe to the channel. If you have any question or any comment, you can feel free to leave the comments in the video below and I will respond. Until next time, thank you very much. Satnam.